Okay.
I know, I got a gal. Okay. I'm officially calling the meeting to order. I guess we need to run the roll call, so
Sandy Butler.
Greg Campbell.
Dan Troutline.
George Harris,
Kevin Kenyon's here.
Kevin.
Hey, Kevin.
All right, so we do have a quorum.
Oh, hold on, this might be,
Is
You got one more?
Tammy with us?
it might be, it says Sue Patton, but maybe it's.
Oh, it's through the foundation.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is, yeah, her.
Tammy, is that you?
She's muted.
Hi, it's me. I was in the meeting in the wrong way, so here I am.
We figured it was you.
Okay.
Has everybody had a chance to read through the minutes?
Yes.
Yes? Everybody? Anybody need some time to go through it? All right, okay. So I guess we're gonna go with old business, which is, I'm sorry, thank you.
You're good. You're good.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I make the motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, now we can move on to old business.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Would it be possible for us to put new business first tonight?
sure, yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, great. I just have one quick item that I didn't want our visitors tonight to have to sit through our entire meeting if they didn't want to. So-
Yeah, that's true, because we got a lot of stuff to go through.
We try not to punish the people.
Yes.
So-
We appreciate that.
I just printed it out for you. It's one of those applications that was right on the edge of something I could approve as staff, but I just wanted your input, because I do know this board has a good sense of design, especially for signs and everything. So just kind of an opinion and also a chance for the Davises to introduce themselves to you in their business. So I'm going to give you each an application. I'm so sorry I don't have this on the computer.
It's okay.
Do you want me to scan it in and give Tammy, put it on?
That would be awesome, yeah.
Give it to me real quick.
Okay.
And of course it printed it out this
Of
way.
course it did, yes. There you go. Thank you. All right, here's the information.
Oh, okay.
So this kind of shows the sign.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh,
So this is going where the Pendleton Times was.
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Another page one and two. Page one and two.
Got that?
All right, Tammy will be bringing you and George up, Kevin, sorry, up to speed in just a minute. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves and your business? Come on up.
Well, my name is Nathan Davis, and the business I'm opening is Magication Station, which is going to be a toy store. It's going to have educational toys, magic tricks, things of that nature, and also Spectrum toys for those with autism. Our oldest daughter does have autism, and we kind of want to have some sort of outreach for that. I'm going to be running the store as an elf character. I'm in 3 Santa Claus societies, and I have an elf character called Elfie, so I'll be running the store as an elf. So you'll see me running around dressed as an elf. Don't worry, I haven't lost my mind. So yeah, that's pretty much the gist of what I'm trying to do.
So the sign is a wall sign. It is at underneath the sill level of the current window sizes, which are a little bit higher up than they were historically. I was just wondering what you guys, if you had any suggestions, or, you know, if you guys needed any assistance with the design, or how you guys felt about it. I know the flower shop across the street here has shown us, how they kind of worked with a similar window situation. And they've actually got really nice little under the awning signs that hang down.
Mhm.
So that way when people are walking down the sidewalk, they don't have to worry about, you know, peeking out and over the awning.
Right,
So
right.
That's, one way we've seen, it handled.
Okay.
Another way is to do the 2 lines of text in 1 line, kind of underneath the historic. Building, windowsills, but
Okay.
that's kind of one where I just wondered if you guys had any input, or if you were comfortable with me approving it as is, or,
Kayla, is this a mock-up?
yes.
Yeah.
That sign's not up there, right?
No, I photoshopped it in, so you can see it.
Thank you.
Does the owner of the building have, like across the street, do they have one of those things,
A bracket?
bracket hanging out, to hang a sign like that?
There's no bracket.
No bracket.
Mhm.
But that is an option.
This is Kevin. Why wouldn't the owner want a bracketed sign sticking out like all the others? You know, a panel, a plank.
Have you considered a bracketed sign?
From what with the Owens, I talked to them, they mainly want to get away from that because of the tornado that you guys had a couple of years ago and the fact that it could cause damage, if there is a bladed or bracketed sign, was their, you know, recommendation not to go that route, so.
Do you have a contractor lined up?
No, I was gonna install it, so. Bless you.
Bless you, thank you. I don't know if that's.
Did the tornado cause any damage because of the signs at any point?
I'm not sure about that. I do know that Boss Salon, their sign is in the back of the building, and I don't know if that got damaged or ripped down because of the tornado or not. So I'm not privy to that information.
I'm not sure
What-
about Boss's particular sign, but I do know that Jerry Burmeister's sign did get damaged by the tornado, but it was easily replaceable. And I don't think his building facade had any other damage besides the sign.
Would your insurance cover damage to a sign?
Oh, yes.
I think the owner.
I think it's probably the building owner.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, you know, and Kevin, I think that Owens typically go by the advice of Bob Post, and I know Bob Post feels very passionate about signs that are flat on the face of the building.
Yeah.
His structure in particular, Black Daddy Donuts has a longer sign that's mounted on the front of the building too. So besides the tornado issue, I think that's probably a recommendation from Bob Post to the Owens about the signs on the building like that.
Well, one of the advantages is that when you're walking down the sidewalk, they're easy to see, and they are also easy to see when you're driving by. I don't think anybody driving by could figure out what your sign says at all. It's just be difficult. You gonna have signage in your window too?
yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What about underneath the eave, like across the street? I noticed they got a sign underneath the eave there.
I mean, I didn't know if we could do that, but that is something I would be willing to do.
Also, the Bayberry Boutique sign is kind of like on the little piece of the wall there between a window and a door. That might, if you downsize the scale of this sign, might fit on that brick section there, kind of right by your doorway. Be another, but that's gonna be kind of small too.
Yeah, it's kind of a narrow.
That's a difficult
Yeah.
area to put some signage on, isn't it?
Right.
And even the windows there's 3 windows.
Yeah, it's not one big thing and it's broken up, so it's like,
It'd
okay.
be nice just to do one big window sign or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
but
do
you want
that.
people who are gonna buy your product to be able to see.
Right.
Kayla, is there
My suggestion,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, is like right underneath here, having like one of those signs you know, that sticks out this way, so when the car drives past, they can see the sign, but yet it's, they don't have to look out, you know, like Kevin said. They keep looking, they'll see the sign. That's my opinion.
Okay.
Do we have anything that says you can't have both? The sign up on the building and the small one like across the street hanging down?
Nope, there is nothing that says that. I think you can have up to 2 sign types per building frontage.
Okay.
That's kind of the,
That way your building, it would be on the building, but it would also be hanging down where patrons could see it when they're walking on the sidewalk.
Right.
If they're looking for it.
Post Building is the only one with the sign on the front on that side of the road, right?
I believe so.
It just seems that, you know, the consistency part of it is important here. And I agree. I mean, nobody's going to be able to read your sign up there. You can't see it from the sidewalk, and you can't read it from the road. So it just doesn't, it seems like you're missing a lot of value added that way.
Okay.
But the only way to enforce that would be to force the Owens to put up a sign, right? We don't want you to put up a sign on the building you don't own.
Well, the lessees put the signs up, don't they?
that is typically what the other Owens tenants do. Like, I believe the Owens actually own the Flower Park building still. And he, at the Flower Park, put up those signs.
Okay.
I think Floss sign was heavier than some, and that's been an issue, and also the way the bracket was installed into the building, it kept dealing with these numbers.
Yeah, I don't think that was necessarily tornado related. I think they've had issues since it was installed
Okay.
on whatever was going on with that one.
Do they have a lighter material instead of metal, a metal sign that can hang? That wouldn't do as much damage or cause much damage if something, if the tornado were ever to happen again? Is there another type of substance that can, material that can use?
Well, I'm sure whatever the tuxedo shop is using is appropriate and not, yeah.
I can definitely get you guys their contractor information too.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
because I do think those turned out really sharp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, one of the issues we had with the gallery down the street was, you know, we had Gallery 19 out front, and when we redid the facade, part of it was restoring those dimensional letters on the top as it was when the gas company was there.
Okay.
But one of the things we were discussing was having a sign that you'd be able to read for our First Fridays as you're going down the street from either side. So we did the sandwich board that we put out front on the sidewalk, so people could see that, and it's been really effective. I mean, I think that that type of blade, you know, sign that comes out, you know, perpendicular to the building is really effective. I don't know if you want to put it underneath the awning or up above, but I think it works much better than just a flat sign. And
Okay.
as you had said, you know, not being able to see it from the sidewalk as you're walking by too.
Right.
It's almost like you have two different viewers that you might want to consider.
Yeah.
Right.
The pedestrians on the sidewalk and then the vehicles driving by.
Right. Okay.
And I think one thing too, if the Owens are gonna be really passionate about doing a wall sign versus doing the blade sign. Another thing you might consider doing, just to make it a little more visible or legible, is doing kind of like Quack Daddy Donuts did, where it's a very long sign, but you can take your, I don't know how, you know, on it you guys are with your branding, but you could split up the Magication and have that all on the same line as station.
Well, I can do
so
that.
you
'Cause
can
I'm a
put it-
photographer of 15 years and I do graphic design, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, you might be able to make that a little bit larger so that it's a little more legible. If
Okay.
you made it a sign that's all on the same line.
Okay.
Made it,
Okay.
and then do your pedestrian signage too. That might be a good
Okay.
one. That if Owens are gonna be very strict about not having a blade sign on the building.
Now, with the two signs, that would be two separate sign permits that I have to put in for, or could I put that on the same permit?
You can do it all in the same permit.
I can, okay.
Yep, and, you guys have anything else you'd like to add?
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. The toy store, that's gonna be fun.
Yes.
I'll be there.
And here you guys write that we have we have the ability to approve as staff if it is either a projecting sign,
Yes.
or a longer, skinnier wall sign.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent.
and a small one hanging underneath
Do a
if
pedestrian.
Yeah.
you deem that.
Okay.
necessary.
Okay. Yep, and window signage, if it's on the glass, you'll see a lot of the historic buildings have some, like, stick-on vinyl signs.
Yes.
Mhm.
That doesn't require a permit.
Right.
And the sandwich boards, as long as you bring them in at night, you can
Mhm.
set those out on the sidewalk, you just have to have 5 feet of space for pedestrians to go over.
Okay, okay, all right, sounds good.
Thank you so much, guys.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you.
If I walk by, you got work to do.
Yes, yes.
Thank you, guys.
You'll have a good one, thank you.
Welcome.
All right.
Thank you, I appreciate you taking out on the fly tonight.
Oh, sure, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I didn't want them to sit through what we're doing. All right,
Especially since
so-
the signs are probably not gonna be included in the grant funding, so.
Um, So I think that concludes new business. Do we do have to have a motion for that, don't we? You can do it.
No.
Thank you, I'm learning so much here.
Yeah.
So I have my cheat sheet, but it doesn't go through that.
That's good.
All right, so, old business, which is, the facade grant improvement grant program.
Yeah, which, you know what, we might, Tammy, we probably need to email this to you so you can flip through it better, and Kevin too. If you, do you wanna get started on it, to talk about it, I can email it to them so they at least have a copy they can follow along with better than the Zoom. I'll be back.
Alright.
So how do you guys want to approach this? Do you want to let everybody read through it, and then if there's any issues to bring up? Because I know there's some in red that are not completed yet that we need to go through as well.
Yes, the red areas are kind of our areas that we need to discuss further.
Right.
We definitely need to look at. I know I went through this earlier today, spent a good couple hours just kind of going through it very closely. And I think a lot of the smaller issues, like explaining how a matching grant works, we kind of added in a little bit of explanation for maybe somebody who hasn't applied for a grant like this before. Kind of caught some spelling typos, talked about the title. But yeah, if I were you, I'd go through, a lot of it's pretty typical, grant wording, and then just look at the red areas, and then we'll go from there. The project selection criteria especially, we'll need to develop.
Yeah, what I've seen so far looks really, really good.
All right, Tammy and Kevin, I just sent you guys an email. Tammy, it went to your foundation, and Kevin, it went to your town of Pendleton. So, I followed the grant guidelines that Madison had fairly closely and tried to work on some of the things that we talked about as a group the last couple meetings. But I still have some questions for you before we have a final draft. One thing I noted, even when I just got back from right prior to the meeting, I think we do need to probably include a map of what the area is that we would allow this grant to be awarded in. Because even Kayla and I were kind of talking towards the end of the day that our downtown business district does not exactly line up with our historic preservation district. And so we want to be clear on what properties are eligible and which ones are not. So I think we could put that in here as part of the application packet. But I'll just kind of go through it. We have a program description that talks about what our purpose is and what guidelines we should be following with any of the projects that come to us. We do have a funding limit section, which we did talk last meeting about matching up to $50,000. So that's in there. And then we thought we'd bring an example of, what that actually means.
You have a typo there.
What do I got? What did we miss?
For example, and applicant.
Yep, thank you.
I do that way too often.
One of those things that spell check doesn't catch for us.
No.
When we get down to applicant eligibility, that's where we think we need to reference a map so that people know exactly what properties we're talking about. And then we did talk about not letting someone apply again within 1 year following their grant final disbursement of funds. get down to application review and approval, we still need to decide if we're gonna accept these on a rolling basis, or if we wanna have deadlines that they have to have the applications in by.
By rolling, do you mean like a monthly basis or just
Well,
anytime?
that's up for discussion too.
Yeah.
So on one hand, we could have the application deadlines coincide with the filing deadlines for the Historic Preservation Commission.
I think that might work best. The rolling is
I
hard to
agree.
keep track of.
Yeah, that could be, so. You have thoughts on that?
Well, I do think that 15 days, which is our filing deadline requirement, is a little bit short for the grant application. So I would like to give us more time to process those applications, like up to so many days to review. And that way, if you apply, say, 15 days prior to this meeting, we would have until maybe the April meeting to review it and make a decision.
So like 30 days.
Yeah,
I think so, yeah.
give yourselves plenty of time on
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Because I guess as staff, we would have to check to make sure the application was complete, but we wouldn't actually accept an application until it was completed.
That's true.
So that might, I guess, how long would you want to have it in hand before it was discussed at a meeting? Because I guess that's really the question here. Because as staff, you could say, if your app's not complete, we're not even gonna take a look at it. But at
Or
least,
like do the standard 30 days and then say if they run into a problem, as long as they notify you saying, hey, I haven't got this paperwork in or this diagram in or something like that until this date, where we can leave it to you to decide if you should extend that out maybe another week or maybe another 2 more weeks.
I would say for the ease of staff, we just wouldn't say the application is complete until it's actually complete.
Oh,
And we
okay,
wouldn't even
okay.
consider putting it on the agenda
Right,
until we
okay.
100% have it complete. So if they don't hit that filing deadline, if it is the 15-day filing deadline, if your application is not complete, you have to wait till next month then.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Right, but then if we got it on that 15 days prior to your meeting, would you guys have enough time to take a look through it in those 15 days to be able to have a good discussion at the Historic Preservation Commission meeting?
Because we will have to meet to make decisions on any of these. We can't do it independently, we can't email in, yeah, I like this one, but I don't like that one.
Yeah, I
We
think
have
we
to
need
meet,
discuss it
so.
here, yeah.
So keep that in mind, that we have to be here saying, yes, I like this one, and no, I don't like that.
We'd like to be reviewing them independently,
Right,
but filling out those scoring matrices, we'll pretty much have it reviewed, but, yeah.
the
decision
discussion
making.
is here.
I think 15 days is okay.
I do too. I mean, sometimes I don't read the minutes till, well, yesterday.
Yeah.
So,
Today.
yeah.
You're getting the hang of this, President.
Well, just being honest, you know.
And I think as staff, if we are looking through an application and we're seeing that they're missing parts and pieces, we'll just tell them, well, your application wasn't complete, you know, you're not eligible to be put on the agenda yet because you guys do need your full 15 days to review it. So if they say, well, we don't have our site plan yet, but we'll give it to you in a week, we're just gonna tell them, no, you can't be on the agenda then.
Bring it next month.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So does that shore up the deadline question?
Yep.
Okay.
All right,
Good.
no doubt.
So will we be reviewing the applications then at every HPC meeting if there are applications?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kayla and I did discuss too, if you go to application review and approval, there's item 2 on that, and it talks about the certificate of appropriateness. You know, one thing we kind of contemplated in the office is, you know, do we want them to have a certificate of appropriateness completed before they even apply for grant funding? And from our perspective, we thought it would be a good idea that they do go through the certificate of appropriateness to keep the architecture of it versus the grant funding of it separate and in 2 different meetings, so it doesn't get tangled up. Or,
Good
you
idea.
know,
Yes. Yeah.
I guess we kind of could foresee some issues with, you know, someone's applying for grant money, you know, maybe if they're putting more money into it, then we're like, oh, I don't don't know, I just think there's some perception issues that could come out of that. So let's keep the two processes separate, but they do have to have a certificate of appropriateness when they apply for grant funds. So, you know, if you're an applicant, if you want to apply for these funds, you need to get your project pretty much in order and approved by you guys with a certificate of appropriateness prior to applying for this grant then. So then they apply for the grant, they can go out and get their contractors on board. Let me back that up. So the first step, they would come and do the certificate of appropriateness with you guys and show you the design plans and what their project is, and you guys would say yes or no. This follows our guidelines or doesn't. You issue it or don't issue it. So if you issue it, they can come back to the next meeting then, they can file their application for the grant funding, and then take their certificate of appropriateness and put it into that packet for us. They can go out, they have some time to go get their cost estimates, you know, and all that stuff that they can then bring to you guys with that grant application, and then you can review the grant application and their project timeline. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Kevin and Tammy? Okay, we thought that would be better than trying to do everything at the same meeting.
I think we might even find where someone comes up for a COA and there's a problem that would have been a problem for their grant in the first place.
Yes.
So as you fix it now
Find that
before
out,
you
yeah.
bring the,
Exactly. Yeah. The other thing we thought was important is that certificate of appropriateness, we think it should be a current one. Because we thought, you know, what if someone pulls out a certificate of appropriateness from like 1982 that we didn't remember we issued or something? Like, we thought maybe we should make sure it was something that was recently approved.
I want to put a disco downtown middle.
Yeah. So anyway, we thought it was important just to note that maybe in the last year, you have to have had that certificate of appropriateness approved.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of another little side note that I wanted to make sure you guys were aware of. On item number 3, I have in there that you guys could approve, deny, or table the application. And I just want to make sure you guys are comfortable with those 3 options. Unless, because one of them, you could take out the tabling. We could just say, we need to make a decision, yes, no. But if you want to do the table option, I'll keep that in there too, but
Can you approve for a lesser amount?
yes.
Okay.
If we deny one for whatever reason, does that mean that it can't come back for a year?
That's up for discussion.
Because let's say somebody's got a really robust project, and something pops up in the grant application, and they say, well, I can take care of that in 2 weeks. We can table it and they can come back. Instead of just saying, I'm sorry, we're gonna deny your project and come back later. Whatever later is, if it's a year, it's really gonna put some people off. I like the option of tabling if we can have it.
Yeah, that's the reason I would table something is because they've done something that's like, no, that's not gonna work. Go back, just resubmit, and be able to do it as quickly as possible, yeah.
If we table a COA, that should take care of the design problems.
Mhm.
And then when they, you know, if they've got the COA already and they come for grant funding and maybe they just didn't score high enough, they shouldn't be penalized for that part of it.
Right.
So I think that there's no reason they shouldn't be able to come back for the next round of grant funding.
Right, or maybe they haven't gotten maybe their estimates, when you guys look at them, you're like, oh, these are way off, or whatever, you want an additional estimate or something, you know?
I think you and I are talking the same language, just saying it different ways.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right, so we are not gonna do like you can't come back for a year on the grant.
Yeah, I think
Just
that
leave it as-
if they can do it in a timely manner, you know, it obviously also shows they wanna get it done.
Right.
And the cost of building supplies will go up every 30 days. They will want to get it done.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, the next section talks about the eligible projects and ineligible projects. I had a note in there that we were not gonna do signage, and I just wanted to confirm that, and that it wasn't just a random note that I accidentally wrote down. But was that what we decided, was we were not gonna pay for signage?
I believe we did say that.
Yeah, I think we did too.
Okay.
because businesses unfortunately come and go.
The only caveat I would have on that is if we said, okay, you can do this type of sign, if we had strict guidelines we wanted them to meet, but I don't think we do.
I mean, I was thinking, you know, your guys' signage on the Artist Society is really unique and part of the building design.
Right,
But
exactly,
if you guys went out, that would have to be redone.
exactly. Yeah.
So, okay, I feel comfortable with leaving the signage out as long as you guys are all okay with that.
I mean, I think we can give guidelines, but not, you know, just.
We don't wanna pay for it. Okay, the next big section, and this will be quite, I think, a good discussion, or I need input on from you guys, is the project selection criteria. Madison had minimum scores that were required to even receive the funding. So that's one thing I wanna pick your brains about is, you know, do we wanna say that you have to have a minimum score? And then what criteria do we want, what's important to us in Pendleton for that criteria on how we're gonna select these projects? So Madison, you know, the things that were important to them, will the project preserve any original architectural features which still remain? Will the improvements use new materials in ways which do not obscure the building's original character? They had points if a structure had been vacant and someone was going to be redoing a facade there, they got basically bonus points. I don't totally know if that's an issue for us, where we would use more points for vacancy. Does the applicant provide more personal investment than 50%? And then what is the use of the structure? And they gave more points for uses that were preferred in their downtown. You know, I don't know if that's something we want to dabble in either. So, you know, our staff discussion on it was, well, I'm going to start with the uses first, is I don't know if the uses are super important to us. On one hand, our grant that we got, this $250,000, is money to help for economic development in downtown Pendleton. So I think we need to keep that in mind. So, you know, I think the obvious thing is that commercial uses would score higher than. However, I think we could make a case that if we have residential uses above that are going in, that helps bring people to downtown anyway. And does it matter if it's residential if we're just doing a building facade?
How about encouraging something that's retail related rather than just office space? There's several places now that are not selling anything at the point of sale there.
Yeah.
So maybe they get a point if it's, you know, walk up retail. I don't know. I mean, that would probably discourage lawyers, and you've got the electrical company there and some other things like that. It might discourage them from taking up what I would consider, you know, street frontage.
Yeah, and that's a good point. The retail is definitely different than an office use. And I think overall, downtowns thrive more when they have those generators rather than an office.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it could easily fill up with people who have deep pockets but don't have any other interest in being Pendleton.
Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would agree with that too. I mean, having retail is part of what makes it downtown like this thrive.
Okay.
So what's the scores? So that would be 1 point, 2 points, or how would you be doing that?
I was thinking on some of these, we would give a range, like a score would be 1 through 5, and then if it's something that's more important to us, then we could give it a higher weight. So if we want to say like, we're all about the preservation piece of it, you know, maybe we say that first item, will this project preserve any original architecture features which remain? We can say, you know, you guys would score a 1 through 5, but then maybe we give that maybe that's twice as important as some of these other items.
It's let's see, the application doesn't include this matrix, right?
The matrix I was going to include in the project selection criteria in the guidelines.
Okay.
Just so we're being upfront on, you know, what we're looking for.
Okay, but you don't expect the applicant to fill this out in any way.
No. The criteria, the matrix would be for the Historic Preservation Commission to fill out for their justification
Okay,
on the project selection.
okay. Well, in that case, more flexibility is better, I think.
Okay.
Would you give these things like a static weight, like say the most important thing is, say for instance, will the project preserve any original architecture? I mean, does that automatically have the higher score than something else? So,
That's what we have to decide.
That's what we
Yeah.
have to decide.
well, if that's just it, though, it's like, is that gonna be something where it's going to be different for each one, and the weight is going to shift as far as the importance?
It could,
Okay.
yeah. So we can say, you know, maybe if preservation is kind of our key focus here, let's give that a higher weight than if it's 50.
Well, I definitely
Yeah.
say that.
I would say like the project, the original structure, and then what is the use of the structure? So we're gonna gear it towards businesses that are selling products and stuff. And we've got the line.
Yeah, we can do that. And so the way I envision us scoring the use of the structure would be, you know, instead of giving a range on that one, we would say if it's retail, you get 5 points.
Mhm.
You know, if it's office, you get 0 points. You know, and then the weight, we would multiply that by whatever the weight is, and then that would give you some extra points than if you're a retail use. Okay, so we'll keep the use question in. I think the preserving original architectural features is kind of a no-brainer too, that we need to keep in there.
I think this next one is very important.
Well,
I mean,
well,
we've had many people come before us with, like, the spruce goose down there, or whatever it's called. Grey goose, sorry. They had to go out and find those windows that looked original, and they found them. And so that, you know, they're gonna replace those windows, and it's gonna look like the original building, which I think is a great thing from our standpoint.
So like giving them a little bit higher score for
I
finding
think so.
those originals.
Because there are a lot of products out there, as we well know, that don't meet our standards whatsoever. But there are starting to be more and more products that do. So if we can get folks to right off the bat go for those instead of, I'm gonna do aluminum siding.
No,
His blood pressure go up.
Well, I'm looking over here at the flower cart, and, you know, the facade of that has changed over time.
Yeah.
You know, and they have the side, you know, the vertical siding there. If somebody comes in and says, okay, we're gonna restore this to look like the original facade, but they're gonna use modern materials. Say, because you've seen some of these buildings that go up, and they put on a very heavy styrofoam base, and they put sort of a stucco on the outside that looks like stone. Is that something that's acceptable?
It depends on what the final look's going to be.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not gonna look original.
I mean, if it looks very close to what you would see architecturally from the period the building was built.
Yeah. Like that house coming in down here, it's actually a stucco house. It's got a chimney with stone on it.
Mhm.
Those look like real stones, but they're not.
Oh.
You see what I'm saying? That would be an example. of what
Exactly, yeah, yeah. And I'm wondering, you know, how do we weigh that if they're not going to use original materials, or if they're gonna have something that looks like limestone, but it's not actually limestone.
So there's-
How
So it
about the-
talks about the guidelines, following the guidelines on the front cover. The Secretary of the Interior guidelines.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say too.
And there are ways, I mean, there's material out there, like cement walls, to make it look like wood siding,
Right,
which we
Right.
used on the back of our house.
yeah, and that's totally acceptable.
And if you put more weight on something like that, then maybe they go that way without being.
Well, hardy board is dimensionally exactly the same, so that's, you know, that's different, but fake stone over foam is not dimensionally the same.
We do have great pictures of that.
Oh, really?
We do, I found one finally, so keep that in the back of your mind.
The original,
Okay.
On which building?
The
Flower
flower
cart.
cart.
the
on the right
original
side
look?
here.
Yes.
It's like a 1940s.
Oh, wow.
Kind of had big plate glass windows in the front. Yeah.
Is that for the Ball State study?
No, I actually found a picture in some random filing cabinets with a big bonfire in the middle of this
Oh, yeah,
intersection, and
that's right.
Really?
it really catches
Uh-huh.
that building. So,
Wow.
It's a cool picture too.
We'll have to look at that.
Well, you showed us that.
Mhm.
I haven't seen that.
The car dealership, or the parking garage was down here.
Yeah, you can catch the.
Right next
Oh,
door, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the bonfire, I forgot the bonfire. Yeah, it's right in the middle of the street.
Oh, boy.
Okay, let me back up to so, I know we talked about following the Secretary of the Interior guidelines.
Yeah.
I think that's gonna come out more in the certificate of appropriateness review rather than the grant review. So let's keep that in mind too, that this is two separate reviews. One, we are reviewing stuff for the certificate of appropriateness, so that should all be a done thing. Whatever we approve with that certificate of appropriateness, just how will we, so all projects coming to this board for grant funding should be following those guidelines
That's
already.
a good point.
Do you have a document that, is easy to read that talks about the Secretary of Interior standards?
We have our historic preservation guidelines, and
It just refers to it, right? Or is it,
it refers to it.
yeah, I mean, if you have something you could hand to a applicant.
You can print those right off.
Yeah.
Indiana Landmarks has them on their site.
I bet we could
Yeah,
put
okay.
it into our
We
application.
could, yeah, we could.
But you got to know where to look. So yeah, it'd be better to be able to hand it out.
I would attach that to the application and highlight it,
Right, exactly.
Now, I think that gives it a little more impetus too, power.
Yeah. Okay. What about the property being vacant question?
Is that well, I guess, is that a problem around here? I mean, you don't stay vacant for very long.
They really don't. And that's why I wasn't sure if that was a priority for us, but is there something else that could be a priority for us?
Reversal of previously incompatible work.
Oh, now that would be a good one, Kayla. I
Okay.
like that one. That's worth a lot to me when they reverse what, damage is done, they can reverse it.
Yeah, that's good.
Say that again, Kayla, you said reversal of,
Previous incompatible work.
okay.
I think it was mentioned in here somewhere. I won't take full credit for it.
That's good.
Well, that does bring up a good point. Make sure that all these criteria refer back to something that was defined above.
Okay, question. This kind of goes back to the use of the structure. Would we want to give extra points if, let's say we took an office building or a structure that's getting used as an office and it's getting transitioned into retail? Or like, for example, I'm thinking like Rings building, they're kind of using it as their storage right now. So there's not actually, it's like a storage facility for them, for their business. But let's say they transition that into retail, would we give them bonus points for that?
If it's a microbrewery, yes.
I love that.
That'd be a good place for one.
George has been working on it for
I've been-
months
yeah,
about this.
Lots of parking, everything else, yeah.
Yeah,
Keep up the good work.
yeah,
That's a good point.
yeah, I think that's important.
Okay. Maybe I can add an extra line in this, and just give them actually the extra point for transition to retail.
I mean, the owners are going to take whatever they can get.
Sure.
So that's kind of a conflicting interest.
On the retail question, or the transition question?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with it. I'm just saying you might get pushback from the owners. This whole document, you might get some pushback from the owners. It's hard to say.
Well, if there's going to be improvements to the building, I wouldn't think they'd get too much pushback. I mean,
Well,
We're going in 50-50 with it.
yeah.
that is true. And on one hand,
Yeah.
I'm not saying you have to transition it to retail, you're just gonna get extra points, because that's.
Oh, no, I think that's really good.
Okay,
Kevin's right, but we gotta draw a line somewhere here.
right.
We
And
are
like,
interested in historic preservation.
yeah, and it's a
And
partnership.
beer.
And
beer.
beer.
Well, I mean, you've got the authority. It's okay to use it.
I was on the committee.
Yes. Okay. And I really do like if the applicant can provide more personal investment than the 50%, I think.
They should
Yeah,
carry it
that's
on.
good.
Absolutely, yeah.
I wonder if that'll ever be checked.
If it'll ever be what?
If anybody will ever check it. I mean, they'll ever want to give more than 50% if they can get 50% for next to nothing.
Well, provided if they, wanted to invest more than 50,000, and that's all we can match is 50,
Right.
put an extra 25,000 in.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Oh, that's what you mean. Okay. Well, that makes sense.
They have
Because I don't think anybody's going to ask for less than they have to.
Yeah.
No.
No.
But yeah, if they're doing, I mean, Dr. Lau, if the max he can get for this structure is $50,000 from us, I'm sure he could spend well more than $50,000 on that.
Oh, no, that's a good idea.
I think windows. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think getting that total number of that total investment by town and person and property owner would be great, just for you guys to say, this is really how much money got invested over these 3 years, and having it, if it's over $500,000, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So,
We have to keep in the back of our minds is that while the food and beverage tax money coming in is excellent, thank you again, for bringing it together.
yes.
Our ultimate goal would be to have the town council shove some money towards this also. Yes, we can always take the food and beverage tax money, that's fantastic, but that's how Madison is doing it. They have a line item in their budget that goes for this. They don't use tax money, they don't hope the money's coming in, they have it. Now, they have more tourism than we have, and it's a different situation, but not that different.
Yeah.
We will get there.
And that's how we do it, by showing the town council, hey, look at this, man, we got more investment than we thought we were gonna get.
We also may talk to the redevelopment commission president about
That gap loser,
at some point possibly directing some TIF funds to
yes,
this program too. That's an opportunity. I think right now our TIF is kind of tapped out, but
right,
as the town starts getting projects online, I think that could be an opportunity for this commission to work with redevelopment.
absolutely. TIF district runs right through here, so.
It does.
Yeah.
And that was very intentional when that happened.
Are you into time limits yet?
For TIF?
Time limits. Yeah.
Oh, yes, sorry, my brain was on TIF, so. Let's see, wait, I was on award notification. So applicants selected to receive funding, they must enter into a formal funding agreement with the town. And that's included in the packet. Of course, the recipient is responsible for timely payments, to any contractors or vendors. Let's see. Any unspent funds will come back to us. So let's say we awarded it for more than what, at the end of the day, it cost them for whatever reason. Maybe they had to scale back on the project, then, we're only gonna award what was spent. We won't do anything.
Of course, projects tend to grow to fill this money available.
Yeah.
Well, now how will we know if the timely payments are made to the contractors and vendors?
Well, we are just saying that we are not responsible for the payments.
Okay, that's what I thought.
They are responsible for their payments.
Okay, very good.
All right, now we're down to time limits. Oh, was there a comment?
Oh, on time limits, that all looks really good. The only thing I think is missing is force majeure. If we have another tornado or a COVID or some other kind of, act of God, shouldn't there be an escape clause somehow?
Okay. Well, we do, yeah. So you think there should be something beyond an extension of a year?
Yeah, I mean, it would have to be in the case of, like I said, force majeure. but I don't think you should close the door completely because stuff happens.
Okay. As we have seen, our last 2 years here have been very interesting.
Oh,
so-
yeah.
Okay, we can add that in for sure. So, and just to kind of reiterate, we want the projects to begin within 90 days following award notification. So if someone gets the money, we want them to get going on their project. We don't want them to sit and wait 2 years before it's funded or before they start moving. Projects must be completed within 12 months. If they're not, they need to come back to us and ask for an extension. And then we can extend up to a year. And then, just as Kevin was saying, we can kind of add in that escape clause on it if something needs to.
And we'll just if they make a recommendation, hey, we can get it done within 60 days.
If for whatever reason, if someone is not able to get it done within that timely manner, or if they don't come back to ask for extensions from us, we do have the right then to pull the money from their project, and we could place a lien on the property if we come into some major issues. Last time we met, we talked about publicity for the project.
Yep, that's good.
Yeah, so we'll require the recipients to post a sign either in the front yard or the front window acknowledging this facade grant improvement program. And of course, if the sign has to get moved around, I think we should be open to that, because if, they're working on windows and it's originally placed in a window, maybe it has to be moved for a few days or whatever.
Did you want to design the sign or just leave it up to the owner or the
I think we would
applicant?
design the sign, we would use our.
Yeah.
All the
Yep.
branding.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Yep, so I think that's probably something that we would provide the signage on. We would hand it over to them and say, this needs to be put in the window, and then when their project is done, we'll take it back so we can pass it along to the next recipient.
Yeah, I think that's really good.
Yep.
You're gonna add words to that effect, or just to have it understood?
Are we gonna what?
You're gonna add words under publicity to that effect, or just have it
Oh,
understood?
Yeah, I can add that in that says, when project's complete, we need the sign back.
Yeah. Well, and that you'll provide the sign, yeah.
All right, this was another one I needed some help on. I did write down in my notes that we talked about like a third, a third, and a third for disbursement.
Yeah, I'm the one that said that. I think,
Okay.
6 months to make a payment is a long time, so.
Okay, so I will, if everyone is okay with this, I'll reword this to say that when they get awarded and we sign the contract and everything, we'll give them a third of it up front so they can get started on their project. And then when they're halfway through, we would give them another third. And then at the end of the project, we'll go out and do a final inspection and we can give them the final third. Is that
Yeah,
how-
and that front loads it a little bit. That's good.
Okay. Now, on this, do we want, so Madison, the way they did theirs, they did a halfway check on it, which I don't have it written as a halfway check right now, but I can certainly go back and revise that if we need to do a halfway check. So,
I think a halfway check's good.
okay.
Or you could just say that each payment or each disbursement's dependent upon, that you reserve the right to inspect.
Yeah,
Okay.
that would be fine.
That might be better.
Yeah.
My only concern is just staff time. We're already gonna have our building inspector going out and doing
I was
inspections.
wondering if you'd be able to use somebody.
Yeah, I would hate to load someone else up on doing extra paperwork for them to file a halfway checkpoint or whatever. but-
Yeah, I would say, you could leave it up to yourself.
Okay.
It does make sense to tie it to the payment schedule though. And is it really more visits to them or, because if it's a third up front, then it's whenever the second draw is. And then the final inspection, those are natural points to inspect anyway.
And I think, well, from an inspection point of view, like from a building inspection point of view, I think it depends on the project, on how many inspections our inspector does. And maybe that's something when we do the grant agreement, we can say, this is when your building is going to be inspected, because they'll have to get a building permit. So maybe we tie that to the building permit and say, if someone's coming in and just doing window replacement,
Yeah,
that's gonna require one inspection maybe.
Yeah.
So maybe we say, maybe that's determined for each
And How
project.
big the project's gonna be.
Yeah, but if, you know, if it's a full facade renovation, I think we should go out and do like a halfway to make sure everything's
Oh, yeah.
okay.
Well, is there a certain amount of communication with the general contractor that we can have, to where we can say, hey, where are you at this point?
Yeah, and
That
that,
they'd be able to fill us in on what's going on.
So why don't you use less precise language then and just say an interim inspection and a final?
okay.
Does Pendleton do like electrical and plumbing and that kind of stuff rough separate? Or is it all done in one inspection?
Be, probably one, just as a rough end.
Yeah, okay. I was gonna say, usually you've got to do a rough on electrical and a rough on plumbing before you can enclose and all that kind of stuff. But, none of these projects should have very much electrical or plumbing.
Okay, we'll leave the wording flexible, have an interim inspection and then a final inspection,
Yeah,
and then we'll do the third, and the third. So I'll rewrite that to reflect this discussion.
it says submit final report in the next paragraph. Any idea what that means? I mean,
So,
is it like a term paper?
yes. If you flip through to the last 2 pages of the application packet, it has the final report checklist. So
Okay.
someone would come back and kind of fill out, their name, the property information. They would describe the project elements that were completed. And then they would give us the final project budget.
Oh, okay. No, that looks really good. I somehow didn't see that.
And then they have to certify the project was completed and all required documents are
Yeah.
in the report. So then we can go back and check the
No.
budget, make sure, they provide proof of payment on all of it, so we can make sure all of the vendors that were from the project have gotten paid. before
Yeah.
we make that final payment.
That's excellent. I didn't see that. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right.
They will certainly want to do that to get their final third.
Right.
Good motivation.
Using this as a template, like, the gentleman over there that owns that building that he's redoing the, art and everything like that. Once this is all set in stone, we go, what do we do? We like apply for this to finish his project over there. Or is that kind of, because these already started as set.
I would say, unless you guys feel strongly against that, my recommendation would be anything that's been approved prior to the application being done or prior to award wouldn't be able to be.
Okay, that's all I wanted, I was just wanting to make it clear.
I think we have to make it clear.
Yeah, I agree.
We've even had people that have come and asked us, or at least me, prior to this being completed, well, what if I get started on the work? Can I come in later and then you guys basically pay me half the project? And I was like, no, that's not how this works.
Okay, yeah. That's
Even
what
if you guys are
I
okay
wanted
with
some
approving.
clarity on that, I
Yeah.
just wanted to make sure.
I think we have to say, nothing in the past that's been approved or that's currently under construction is gonna be eligible for this money moving forward.
It's a good question.
It is a good question, because it's been asked.
The lumber company guy in the survey you did said, I would love to have something like this to help me finish this building. So he was asking for that with the survey you sent out a month ago.
Yeah.
I guess one option would be to only fund work that has not been started yet, that has received a COA within the last 12 months. So for example, the buildings across Pendleton Avenue here, he has not purchased or plate windows for the upstairs. Could he say get funding for that since he hasn't really touched that part of it yet?
Yeah.
What if, as Kayla said, a project like this starts, for whatever reason, they slow down or stop for a year, and they come back in and COA again and then get into this?
What do you guys think?
That's, because we're gonna get that. That's
Yeah.
absolutely going to happen, and maybe
That's why I
we
brought
should.
that up, because I was wondering how that would all.
It-
It's a good learning experience with them trying to redo that building.
Yeah,
Well, I think our two that we would get this question on is certainly John Oliver's building and then also the old lumberyard.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
as I look at it, that building's more historic than that building over there. That's good, that's all gonna be office, probably no retail, I don't think, right?
Mix probably.
Mix, okay. I
But
wasn't
they're,
sure.
they're definitely changing.
But there, that building, the facade on it is important to us. So it had to be a judgment call on us, I guess.
Well, and that's where the weighted,
That's where the
the
way,
weighted criteria would rank that building higher than
Yeah.
that structure down there.
but the general question on the table is, are we going, we are going to face this, so are we going to allow folks to come back and say, okay, forget that COA, I got to do whatever I was gonna get, I wanna start all over again.
And personally, I would say let them finish out their COA and then come back to it. But
Or
that's,
maybe we need to talk about the wording, because the certificate of appropriateness, he has a design that we have approved for him. So regardless if he does that design today or 10 years from now, that's approved over there.
oh, okay.
But now the building permit expires after 18 months.
Okay, I didn't realize the COA was a continuous thing. I thought there was a time to term.
No, there's not on a certificate of appropriateness, because you're approving a design, basically.
Okay.
Now, the building permit does expire after 18 months, they can come in and get an extension on their building permit. So that's probably the situation that Oliver and the lumberyard are in right now, where they've had these approved designs, but, you know, obviously he's torn out his front facade on the first floor. Nothing's been done to put anything back in on where the old trail restaurant used to be. So, yeah, how do we handle that? You know, because he's not gonna come back to get another certificate of appropriateness from
Right.
us because that design's been approved.
I didn't realize that either, Dave, that kind of, that's a real stumbling block, if COA is good forever,
Yeah,
you need to
thought
finish
there
your
was-
COA before you can come back and do this. But that building may look like that for the next
10 years.
10 years if he doesn't have the money to do it, so.
So, who grants those COAs?
You grant
We
the
do,
COAs,
okay,
yes.
I was, I knew it, that's what I'm learning.
Yes, you guys grant the certificate of appropriateness, and once he has a certificate of appropriateness, he can come in and get a building permit from the planning department, so that he can actually do the construction on
That's
it.
what I was.
I don't think we've had a COA since Dan's come on.
Really? You'll be
Yeah.
like a first timer when
Yeah,
these come
that's
in.
why I asked it.
Very
I
good.
don't think we have.
Yeah, so yeah, that's approving the design.
Okay,
Then they come in and they come to the planning department and get a building permit to do demo and to do the work that you guys have approved.
well, in some, just, this is not for this discussion tonight, but somewhere down the line, should we possibly discuss putting a time limit on ceilings? You know, down the road?
Talk about it.
Yeah, I'd be concerned if that building was still that way in another couple of years.
Oh, my.
And I don't necessarily know if that would be doable for them to stay that way, because I think, you know, plywood is not anything that you guys have approved for a facade.
No.
So I think at a certain point, we could start fining a property owner for putting plywood up in windows or in a facade like that. You know, so we've been kind of discussing that in the office too, on how to handle situations like the two that we have right now.
This is an extraordinary situation with COVID and everything, so.
It is.
But we should deal with that.
But that's not a good long-term
No, Dan's
fix
got a
for
good
that.
point.
You know, we do have approved plans, you know, we issued the demo permit with the thought that the property owner would be moving forward with the replacement. And that's just kind of slowed down, so.
Who would,
The COVID.
who would do the citing? Would it be, the building department would cite them for, plywood? It wouldn't be the Historic Preservation Commission, would it?
I think we could go a couple different routes. I do think the Historic Preservation Commission could fine a property owner for having the plywood up in these openings. But I think we could do it from, a building code perspective too, so, or a
I mean, I would give them
planning
a
department
chance to
perspective.
come in and try to correct it before we find them. Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, what is the situation right now? Is it because of like, you not getting stuff delivered or things are on back order or?
I am not aware of what the situation is right now. That plywood went up maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah,
Um,
It's no different than the lumberyard. I mean,
Right.
the guy that bought the lumberyard was as liquid as he could be prior to COVID.
Exactly, so.
Yeah, well, that's probably true, yeah.
So we gotta give a little leeway here,
Yeah,
so
I
everybody
agree.
gets back on their feet. But, this is a good discussion because when everybody gets back on their feet, we're gonna have that situation.
Yeah, it is hard to think about finding someone at this point, just because things happen so strange in the last year. But I think we are gonna have to get to a point where we need some of these projects moving forward, because having more than enough buildings in our downtown isn't really the look we're going for.
Here's, I guess, one way to look at it. This grant has a time limit on it, and they have to finish it
Right.
within 12 months, or they have to give back all of their grant funding. Now, you could look at this as it would just get us deeper in the hole, and have to put a lien on a building, but it could be the, stick required to
Yeah.
have that finished up within a year.
Yeah.
I think right now we would have to wait for the 18-month building permit to expire before we could really go after the plywood as not being the finish we decided on. So that's one way you could look at providing this grant to maybe a project that's already been started. And maybe this is what they need to get it finished.
But you do want to put money to work in Pendleton, one way or the other.
That's true. So did you get enough to answer your question, Rachel? or-
No.
I was afraid of.
So in a situation like Oliver's Building, how do you guys want to handle that?
In the future, if we had a person come by and said, okay, I bought this building, I want to refurbish the exterior and everything, I'm doing some interior things. And he follows the guidelines, and we do a COA, and we have a discussion about a term limit on COAs down the line, you know, then we would be able to, because like you said, we're gonna have to navigate that someday.
Exactly.
I don't think that answers your question.
Well, how about we approach it like this? We do know we have some properties that are currently in progress right now.
Yeah.
However, in the long run, I don't think we want to do that. I don't think we want people to start working on a building, come to us to get grant money, and then we pay for what they've already done.
Correct.
I think we
Oh,
want,
absolutely not.
you know,
Yeah.
that's a no.
Yes.
However, maybe we see if these particular property owners that we know are midway through a project, maybe they don't even come and ask for grant money, you know, or maybe they do, and maybe we just deal with those particular property owners when it is.
Well, and maybe that's what we consider when we weigh these things out anyway,
Yeah,
is the fact they've already, that it's a work in progress.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we are aware of the ones that are in mid-project right now
Mhm.
versus the people who are at,
Yeah.
the businesses and that are not doing anything right now.
Right.
You know, that,
I think for the wording of this, I agree with you totally, Rachel. We should, this is for a new project, not a previously approved COA.
Right.
right,
Those who come to us with previously approved COAs, that's gonna be an HPC thing where we figure out, okay, are we
how
gonna
you
do
wanna
this?
handle it,
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I think that's good.
Yeah, I
Okay.
like that.
So we'll deal with that on a case-by-case basis, however, we're not gonna accept applications for new works that start up. Okay,
Okay.
Good.
that's fair.
So when
That
COVID
makes
starts to
sense.
subside, I vote that Rachel crack the whip on these people.
Yeah. That's good. Okay, final report will be due within 45 days of project completion. Before they begin, prior to the start of work, they have to sign the consent agreement, which the consent agreement is part of the application. And then the actual grant agreement, the grant program agreement, is part of the packet too, which we'll review in a few, but those two things will have to be signed before they can begin their project and they can start receiving grant monies. All right, so if you flip to the next page. This next page is the kind of checklist that we will review as staff before it ever goes to you guys. So we will check this list to make sure everything is included in the packet. If it's not included in the packet, we will say you don't get the file until next month if you get this stuff in. So types of things we're gonna be looking at. One thing that Madison had that I wasn't sure if we needed it or not, cause I'm just not totally familiar with this. They were asking for a certificate of incorporation if the person applying was an organization or a business. And I don't know, Tammy or Kevin or any of the rest of you, is that something that you guys think we need to have?
What is this
And maybe that's a
certificate of
legal
incorporation?
question. I'm not sure.
Does anyone know what that is?
Tammy, have you
Kevin's
done-
on mute, but I think Kevin,
Did I mute him?
There I am. There I am. Certificate of incorporation only applies if you're incorporated, which a lot of sole proprietorships and those kinds of things are not.
I wonder if Madison is addressing a local problem of some kind, because that doesn't seem like something that would come up unless you have lots of, I don't know what, unincorporated businesses doing business there.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I bet you most of the businesses aren't incorporated.
Okay.
Like the young, couple that were in here tonight, that'd be a good.
Alright.
Incorporated.
Well, what about like a Dr. Lau? You know, he's gonna be doing, and is that tied more to like, if we have to put a lien on the property, that we would wanna see this, or do you think that doesn't matter, we just?
I would think it would have to do with collecting taxes, like sales tax and insurance and things like that, like some state.
The only thing I could think of is maybe ask legal about that.
I don't know. If there's much difference, you know, incorporation or sole proprietorship.
That just gives you that.
Okay, we will do that,
That's Jeff.
and if not, we'll just pull it out.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to know that the property has insurance.
Oh, yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
To know that the actual property owner knows that the applicant is applying and that we actually see the deed for it. Of course, having a certificate of appropriateness. So I left all those things in. So we'll check on that certificate of incorporation.
It does say if
Yeah, I would
business.
assume the deed would already say whether it was a corporation or an individual owning the property. Wouldn't be able to know by that.
We'll double check, to be sure. Okay, if you go to the next page, this is actually where the application begins. Again, on number one, if it's a business, I'll check on that certificate of incorporation, but of course we want the name of the applicant, home address, phone number, email address. We would like the property owner information, and along with that, we want the deed and the proof of property insurance, and all of their contact information. Then number three, we want the actual property information, you know, what building is it, what's the name of the business that's in it, what is the physical address, what is the total cost of the project and the amount of grant being requested, and then we want an estimated date that the work will be completed. On number four, we're asking for a description of the project, and what we would like to see is you know, what's the property's current condition, give us some photos, tell us about, you know, the property, how it exists today, and then give us a description of the proposed project, and then also that project timeline. Show us how, as an applicant, they're gonna get it done within that year time frame. Of course, we would still, even though we will probably know what we're looking at, we still want the site plan, floor plans, any elevations and drawings that are associated with what they're asking for, so we can keep it on file. And you guys can get a refresher, so if it's a year, you know, they get their certificate of appropriateness in January and they don't come back to us until next January for the grant approval, then we can be refreshed on all that information.
Good point.
On number five, we want a description of the project budget, and we're asking them to list all the major tasks necessary to complete the proposed project. We want the total budget and then how much they would like us to match. And we would want materials and labor separated just so we can see what the breakdown is. And then of course, we would want them to attach any supporting documentation. So if they ask a contractor to put a cost us that full estimate or full quote for the project. Number six.
Just Kevin, sometimes the contractor just wants to do a lump sum. I mean, how do you get around that?
I guess that's open to discussion. What are your guys' thoughts on
I
that?
would assume that the contractor would have an itemized
Yeah.
bill anyway.
I think we should, we
Yeah.
say, hey, we want to itemize what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
So that would not be a complete application then, we receive just a lump sum.
We would want to see the breakdown,
Correct.
so we can ask for the
Any
breakdown.
contractor's gonna do that anyway.
Yeah, they have to do that,
Yeah.
come up with a lump sum.
Yeah.
Well, actually, they don't have to make it available. Yeah, it's their internal documents, but they don't have to tell you that.
Okay, but I guess we as a partner in the project could request that we get that,
Mhm.
or say that's what we're requiring if you want our grant funds.
Yes.
You'll need to find one that can break it down.
Because, I mean, if you're gonna itemize it like that, then they'd have to include, overhead and profit as a line item.
Would that all fall under just labor?
Yeah.
Cause you're separating labor and material, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes they bump the cost of material because they're kind of acting as, as the bank in that situation.
Well, sure they are. And they don't necessarily want to reveal their buying power either.
Right.
There's lots of reasons why it's difficult to get that level of detail on a project like this.
For us, with the purpose of having a level of detail, because we want to make sure that we feel like it's a fair price, and in that case, could we say, do we want 3 estimates, or do we want, like, would that help us accomplish the goals of making sure, because that's, I guess, from my perspective, why we would want to break down is just to make sure it was a reasonable cost. So if we got, I don't know, what do you
Well, I
guys
mean,
think about
would
that?
it be okay to get like a general idea of materials, like just break it down into those 2 categories? Or if there weren't a lot of materials, like if there was masonry involved and that's one subcategory versus lumber versus whatever, and then they could just provide a general cost from the contractor. They don't have to reveal their markup.
No, and sometimes you just figure out your materials and then double it for labor.
Yeah.
There's lots of little tricks.
Mhm.
I'm trying to think back to the MSRP project that we had and how that got broken down.
Yeah.
They did give, I remember they had estimates for like tuck pointing and window replacement and I don't know if that was materials or materials and labor. I think it was materials and labor.
Yeah, probably.
When Rencon came in and gave us bids, I just can't remember how the bids were.
What about subcontractors? Do you want them to identify who they're going to use for a subcontractor?
Do we care? Do we
I don't
want
think
to?
that'd be an issue, actually.
So it will if they don't have their general liability insurance.
So they'll be attaching all that supporting documentation if there's contractors.
There's all kinds of levels of scrutiny here. Maybe we just, it's not that big of a amount of money.
True, I guess it depends too on the project. If you're doing a full facade rehab, that's a different project than if you're just doing window replacement.
Yeah.
That's true.
And maybe that's kind of the beauty of having the grant review process where, they need to come to the meeting that you guys are reviewing their application. If you have additional questions and want additional materials, we could ask for those then. Maybe saying we want it broken down and maybe they send us a quote that it's a lump sum like you're talking about, Kevin. And maybe we do accept that as staff, but then when we're in the meeting, if you guys need an extra level of, if something seems off, maybe that's when we request
Good.
a broken down materials list if they don't
Yeah.
know about it to begin with.
Like I said, we prefer to have it as a broken down materials and labor cost.
Yeah,
If that can't be provided, then give us what you can.
right.
And then we can just-
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we just I would recommend we just keep this as is with, we say we want materials separate from labor. If they give it to us, great, and then if they give us a lump sum, then again, let's talk about that in our review.
That sounds good.
Okay, sounds good. Good discussion, you guys.
We have done that in the past where we've had people who came before us for COA and we said, sorry, bring a floor plan in, you know, where's your architect's drawing? And
Right.
they had to come back to the next meeting with the stuff, so,
Yep.
we've done that before.
Okay, the number 6 is the consent agreement, and it just kind of outlines some of the basics about, you know, making sure that they understand what they're applying for and the expectations of the project, before it gets awarded even, or before you guys even review it. So if there's something that they're not comfortable with doing, I feel like this helps us be very upfront about what our expectations are.
You might want a boldface initial.
Okay, will do. And then we're requiring the applicant to sign as well as the property owner to sign. Because we have had some weird circumstances where, you know, if a business is wanting to do an improvement and we're just not sure if the building owner is actually aware of it. So I think for us to be financially investing in a project, we need to make sure that the property owner is on board.
Well, there are a zillion different kinds of leases.
Yes. The next page is the agreement for participation. We have not had Jeff Graham's office review this yet, but that will be part of, you know, they'll be reviewing this whole packet before it actually becomes officially available to the public. So this was just based off of what Madison was doing. So we'll just make sure that Jeff Graham's office is comfortable with it as well. And we'll do the grant recipient will be signing this one, and then we'll have the HPP president sign this one.
Oh my God, I gotta sign something, this is so cool.
The lawyer's probably gonna come back with all kinds of weasel words.
Oh,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sure.
You gotta bring 5 pens when you sign it, 'cause we all get one of the pens.
Oh, yeah, a Mont Blanc, is that okay with you? Yeah, sure.
And I will double check too. I think you guys have your own, I think you guys are able to sign a document like this, but I'll double check on that too. So maybe not, George.
That's okay, that's all good.
And they make it.
Power of attorney,
They also make it use crayons.
yeah, there you go.
We can't run with scissors.
No Sharpies.
Damn it.
All right, the last 2 pages we kind of already talked about. It's the final report checklist. You know, we just want to, at the very end of the project, have them fill this out for us so we can double check all the numbers and make sure that, you know, what was said that was going to be spent was actually spent, and we can confirm that our money is being spent the way we agreed for it to be spent. So
I have to say, this is a beautiful document, and it's much more readable and usable than the Madison one.
thank you.
Great job on
That's
this.
nicely
It's
done.
so well done.
This is killer.
Thank you. All right, well, I will work on making those updates. Some of you already know this, but some of you may not. I have accepted another position. I'm going to be leaving the town. My last day is March 26th.
Boo.
I know. It was such a hard decision to make. You guys are going to make me cry.
No, are you serious?
It's good timing for me, and I'm going to be going to HWC Engineering. I'm going to be working in the private sector, which is brand new for me. I've always been in public, so it'll be a new adventure. I'm excited
Where's
about it.
HWC?
They're located in downtown Indy.
Mhm.
They're in the BMO Harris Building. But with COVID, I'll be working 3 days from home, 2 days in the office.
But you're not moving.
I'm not moving. I'm
Okay.
still staying here. I'm still going to be in the community, so you guys can come hassle me and pick my brain whenever, and maybe I'll show up for a meeting or two. Because I still love Pendleton, and it's been like so hard already this month where I'm looking at my projects, and I'm like, okay, Kayla, don't forget to do this, this, and this, and this. Poor Kayla.
Poor Kayla.
I'm in denial.
Do you expect that they'll replace your position as it is?
It's very likely that Kayla's going to be getting bumped up to planning director, and I think we're going to be advertising for Kayla's position then.
Yeah, that's typical.
Yeah.
Well, Rachel, you've done an excellent job.
Yes, you did a great
Very
job.
good.
Yeah, 7 years. I'm going to be like lost for a minute, so it's been fun. I don't know if I've ever told you guys the story when I moved to the area in 2007. I was driving down State Street and I was like, I need to work for this town one day. Like, this was one of my goals, was to work for the town, and I'm just really appreciative of having the opportunity. And I've made so many friends and just grown so much, so.
That's so weird because when we first drove up here, I'd never been to Pendleton, and we drove through and then we saw the park and went, I looked at my wife and said, we gotta get a house. You know,
But there's just something about
it's
Pendleton
weird.
where you're like, I need
Yes.
to be here.
Yeah, I love living down only 4 blocks away.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
love it,
yeah.
because you just walk down,
Mm-hmm.
go anywhere.
And I always wanted to live on Broadway, and I finally found my house on Broadway.
Oh, that's
And,
awesome.
you know, it's,
She's not leaving.
I'm not leaving, I'm in it, but.
So we know where to find you.
Blocked on the days that she's going to work.
Yeah, it's okay, well, we still have to meet for coffee in the morning.
You have a little bit of a drive.
It will be a little bit of a drive.
He's gonna commute with me on the bicycle.
Oh, that will be fun. There's some
He
part
does
of
that?
going to the wellness center more, learning to do that.
Wow.
Start soon.
Oh, wow.
I do the Mona, I don't go all the way.
Well, yeah, oh, man.
96th Street to downtown.
That's really neat.
Shot, isn't it?
But, so yeah, Kayla will be, you know, finishing this process up, and then I can't wait to see what you guys do with it. So it'll be neat. All right.
So anything
Excellent.
else? Anyone? Questions or?
We need a motion to adjourn?
We need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned. Oh, yeah.
Well done, man, well done.
Yeah, great
Well, thanks for
job.
the guidance.